Every shot you just saw in that sequence was lit with one light. I think there's a misconception that if you want a cinematic video, you're gonna need thousands of dollars of different lights and lighting setups. But the truth is, even with one light, you can achieve a lot. You just need to know how. So in this video, I'll be showing you how to achieve different looks and styles of videos using one light and one modifier. Hi, my name is Bruno Pozo. I'm a commercial filmmaker here in Bend, Oregon, and I make weekly videos on filmmaking technique, gear reviews, and how to make money with your camera. If any of that interests you, hit that like and subscribe. Now, on to the guide. First, let's talk about what you're going to need. All of these setups in this video only have two things: a light with a light stand, obviously, a softbox and a reflector for that light, so you have two different styles of light you can use, and finally, some sort of bounce or negative fill. This can be that 5-in-1 reflector disc or something like a V-flap if you have it. For this tutorial, I am using an extremely powerful 300-watt light from GVM, and this one has been really good because it also is bicolor, so you have 2700 Kelvin to, I believe, 6800 Kelvin, so you can get really warm and cool tones from this light. And having 300 watts means we can do things like emulating sunlight or moonlight. So with all of that, we're ready to jump into our first setup. So let me set the stage here. I am at my friend's studio, Miranda Kelton Photography Studio. She lent me it for the afternoon to actually create these different lighting setups. But as you can kind of see, it is a fairly plain room. You got these white walls and ceilings and this wood floor panel. Luckily, she does have a ton of props and backdrops, but I really wanted to keep this simple, so I'm not going to be using any of the backdrops, but I will be using the V-flat instead of my 5-in-1 reflector dish, and a desk and some other props around the office. So how do we turn this into something cinematic? First off, you have to turn off the overhead lights. You want to have as much control over the lights in your scene, and so turning off all the lights is key. Now let's start with the most basic lighting setup, which is a standard key. You'll use this for pretty much most of your talking head videos, if not all of them. In fact, that's what I'm using right now. And the setup for this is having your light roughly 45 degrees from your subject and slightly above and angled down. This helps create a shadow side to your subject's face that's going to help us give that depth in the scene. And because we're only using one light, you can help control the shadow side brightness or darkness by using either the white bounce to bounce more light and fill it in, or put the black negative fill on that side of the subject to make it darker. With just that, here's how our shot looks. This lighting setup is simple, effective, but not very exciting. So how can we add some more dramatic or cinematic look to this shot? The easiest way to make a shot more dramatic is by introducing more shadows. That's where our next lighting setup comes in, the side light. By changing our light's position from in front of the subject and off to the side, and instead placing it directly 90 degrees to the side of your subject, you can see what a dramatic difference it makes on the lighting of your subject's face. The height of the light doesn't matter quite as much here. You can have it at eye level, pointing directly horizontally, or even slightly above. I left mine slightly above. But in this shot, you can see how only half of the subject's face is lit up while the other half is in darkness. And using our bounce or negative fill, we can bring some exposure back to that dark side, or even make it more dark and contrasty by using the negative fill. Because I want a more dramatic look, I used the negative fill for this shot. Here's how the shot looks. Now, continuing this pattern of moving our light's position, we end up on the reverse key light. As you might guess, the reverse key light is similar to the key light in terms of its position, but instead of being in front of the subject at 45 degrees, it's going to be behind the subject at 30 to 45 degrees. So only maybe a quarter or a fifth of their face is illuminated by the light, while the rest is in shadow. This is a very dramatic look that can evoke strong emotions like distrust or contemplation, but it's all going to depend on how much fill you want in your scene. So here's how the shot looks with the white bounce helping lift the shadow side. And here's how that shot looks with the negative fill, creating more contrast to our subject. You can see what a huge difference the modifier has to our final shot. This next setup, I want to show how you can use a table to introduce some more bounce and exposure on your subject. We'll keep it on the reverse key light for now, but what we're going to have is our white desk. And because the desk is white, now it's acting as a positive fill, bringing up the exposure of our subject even more. And together with the negative fill or the white bounce, you're able to introduce or reduce the contrast in your scene. Here's how the shot looks with the negative fill, and here's how it looks with the white bounce. Leaning into that dramatic look, we can take advantage of this next setup, the overhead lighting. This is exactly what it sounds like. You're gonna place the light typically right above your subject if possible. For me, it wasn't really possible to do it in this room, so I placed the light behind my camera as high as it could go and then angled down over my subject. When the light is directly above the subject, you get a ton of shadows on their eyes and their cheeks and their face, and it can create such a dramatic, almost interrogative scene. Here's how our final shot looks. For this next setup, I want to take advantage of having an extremely bright light to do something interesting, and that is emulating the sun. To help do this, you'll want to use the reflector dish attachment on your light because this helps focus the light beam and typically increases the intensity of the light. With a reflector dish, you can get away with maybe a 100-watt light to do this exact setup, but you may need to play with the light's position and how close your subject is to that light to get the right exposure. But because we have a 300-watt light, I have more flexibility in the position of the light I can use. So I placed the light outside at one of the windows and I raised it as high as I could to emulate the sun's position in the sky, and then I angled it down through the window. And then I set my light to a warmer temperature, in this case 2700K, to emulate that warm sun. And I put its intensity at 100% so I can get the strongest, brightest light possible. To make the light appear more orange, I set my camera to 5600 Kelvin. Here's how the shot looks without the emulated sunlight and with. So far, we've covered a lot of dramatic and moody lighting setups, but what if you want something a little softer and more commercial? This is where a bounce light comes in. A bounce light is simply having your light point at a surface, and then the surface now is a bright source that bounces onto your subject. And so for me, I pointed the light at the ceiling because the ceiling was all white panels. This is important because if you had, say, a colored ceiling like wood, you're gonna get a more orange color cast over your scene. And that is just something to be aware of when using bounce light. The light is influenced by the color of the surface you're bouncing. And because I want this scene to be more evenly illuminated, I once again kept the reflector dish on my light and I left the intensity at almost max. As for the light's position, I try to aim it so that it's sort of a little bit in front of and above my subject. So that way the light hits it and then bounces onto my subject more evenly. Bouncing the light this way also creates a much softer light, so you get a more commercial, airy look to your images. Here's how the final shot looks. Because you've stayed all the way until the end, let me share with you one more bonus setup, and this is a nighttime scene. For this, I wanted to emulate moonlight coming from a window source onto my subject in a dark room. Much like emulating sunlight, I had to place my light outside with the reflector dish at a relatively high angle, pointed down through the window. And because we are trying to emulate moonlight, moonlight typically looks a little cooler or blue to our eyes. And so I raised the Kelvin to its max, which is 6800 Kelvin. And then I had to set my camera to something closer to 4000 Kelvin. You can see the difference between having the Kelvin match the light versus having the camera set to 4000 and having the light above it. And you can see what a difference in terms of color it has on your image. Finally, just for fun, I set the camera to 5600 Kelvin. I adjusted the light's temperature to the lowest, which was 2700 Kelvin, and then set it to its max intensity. And as you can see, you can emulate sunrise in this scene. And what's crazy is that this is all shot during the night, so you can fake a daylight scene by using this trick. So there you have it, 8 cinematic lighting setups with 1 light and 1 modifier. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you need more lights to create a cinematic image, and although that can be helpful, it's not always necessary. And in fact, if you can get comfortable and master using 1 light, you'll be surprised how much better your eye and cinematography can get. So if you have any questions about any of the lighting setups I shared in this video, leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to help you out. And thank you to GVM for giving me this light to help create this guide for you. If you want to check out the GVM 300 all-in-one bicolor light, it'll be in a link in the description box below. If you like this filmmaking technique video, you can check out how I shoot B-roll in this one. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. I appreciate every single one of you who do and support this channel. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.